Crypto products are unregulated and could be highly volatile. Please be aware of the risks before investing.
राज, बाबूजी के आशीर्वाद से हमने अपनी नई शुरुआत तो कर ली, पर अपना फ्यूचर प्लान कैसे करें?
बड़े-बड़े शहरों में ऐसी छोटी-छोटी बातें होती रहती हैं।
Looking for perfect start? Get a Bitcoin today. Download the Unocoin app.
जब मैं तेरी उम्र का था ना, तो एक सक्सेसफुल करियर, लॉन्ग टर्म प्लानिंग सब रेडी करके रख चुका था। और एक इन महाराज को देखो, पूरा दिन फोन में लगा रहेगा।
दैट प्लानिंग तो मैंने भी कर रखी है, Unocoin के साथ।
नए जमाने के साथ नई चीजें आजमाएं। Looking for Bitcoin? Download the Unocoin app.
Guys, we really need to work hard. This wasn't a good quarter. Tell me, are you happy with this?
Yes! Unocoin.
Want to earn Bitcoin? Just grab your phone and shake it. Download the Unocoin app.
Bitcoin, 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 Bitcoin.
Get a systematic buying plan from the Unocoin app to get your Bitcoin today. Download the Unocoin app.
Hello and welcome back, dear audience, to Unocoin's AMA, that is Ask Me Anything session. And today we are going to discuss one of the most interesting topics around one of the characteristics of Bitcoin, that is volatility. So this is your host Shambhavi for today, and here we have with us the Bitcoin expert, Mr. Sunny Ray, who is also the president and the co-founder of Unocoin. Hi Sunny, how are you?
I'm well. How are you, Shambhavi?
I'm great too. So, Sunny, this one question around volatility of Bitcoin is something that everyone wants to know because, of course, there are a lot of other speculative asset class in the market. But when it comes to Bitcoin, there's a certain notion that, oh my God, it's going to go up and down in no time. So, what all factors do you think affect this nature of Bitcoin?
I think there's lots of factors, and I think it's hard to obviously pinpoint any particular factor, but ultimately the price is determined by just two things: supply and demand, just like anything else. So that's how the price of any good or any commodity or anything is determined, and similarly for Bitcoin. So there's a certain number of supply of Bitcoin, and there's so much demand that's garnered, driven by media hype and just generally speaking, people reading about it, learning about it, and then those two things meet in the middle, and you have a price that's determined. And we can go into more detail about that, but there's a lot of variables. Obviously, government regulation come into play. And you have a whole bunch of variables, but ultimately the free market is one that kind of operates on its own, and it's difficult to pinpoint any particular factor that drives the overall price, because it's like all these millions of people all over the world interacting with exchanges and Bitcoin that determine the price.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of factors, and this session is going to be more interesting because we are going to discuss all of these factors. In the meantime, guys, if you have any question around this topic, that is volatility of Bitcoin, Please feel free to drop your questions in the comment section, no matter what platform you're watching it via. Just drop your questions in the comment box, and I'll convey them to Sunny for you, and the subject matter expert will answer all your questions. So, Sunny, we were talking about supply and demand and how we have studied all of it in economics and how it basically affects the price of anything. I remember this one example we used to get in our school book of economics. That was for sugar and no, that used to be for tea and coffee. When the price of one goes higher, the demand for other increases, like that. So here, do you think that one such thing can exist in the space of crypto as well?
I don't think I understand the question. What do you mean?
Okay, so like there was this one example in our economic books where tea and coffee both are beverages, and both are like substitutes for each other, right? If the price of tea
Hmm.
is going higher, the demand for coffee will increase because people who are not able to afford the coffee anymore are going to switch to the tea. So do you think this can happen?
Oof. I don't know. I mean, even that analogy, I find it a little bit difficult because I drink both coffee and tea. So I don't know if those two are directly correlated. I don't know if one person drinking coffee leads to reduction in tea. But what I do know is that ultimately the price of coffee or tea will be determined by the number of people that want to buy it and the number of people that are actually producing it, or like right, and then those two curves, essentially, if you remember those two curves, the supply and demand curve, meet, and you get the price, right? And so yeah, so I mean I kind of get what you're saying about, you know, a relationship between different things, but I don't know how that applies. I mean, yeah, I guess you could extrapolate and apply it to crypto in general and say, well, you know, when Bitcoin moves, crypto kind of moves with it as well, right? That Bitcoin leads the pack. So there's some correlation there, but in general, yeah, I think the price is determined, like I said, by supply and demand, and it's done essentially based on by exchanges, right? So there's order book exchanges like Unocoin and big exchanges all over the world, and you have buyers and sellers that are essentially connecting at these places, and the price is essentially determined on these platforms by the free market. Yeah. Hey, and by the way, I was gonna say is like we kind of just jumped right into the volatility question, right? But I like setting up some of these like presentations with a little bit of like why, like, you know, like why are people here? What is, I mean, maybe someone's joining for the first time, but like why does Bitcoin even matter, right? So I just want to speak to that like maybe really quickly before we kind of barrel down these questions, right? So I think that the exciting thing about this is I keep saying it's the price of Bitcoin is determined by supply and demand. But what's super unique about Bitcoin, if you ask me, and I'm very excited about Bitcoin, as you can tell, is that the number of Bitcoin is limited.
Yes.
Okay. So the number of Bitcoin is limited. It's hard limited. It'll never surpass 21 million. And this is a very, very important point, right? Because you brought up sugar, tea. You could talk about fiat currency. You can talk about anything. And usually the supply is not limited, right? I mean, if supply
Yes.
can change, the demand can change. And when you have a money system, right, that everyone's using, everyone's relying on, when you can change the base pair, when you can change the base kind of value of that, the money itself, by printing as much as you want, that's a very dangerous thing. And so people are really, and so again, if you go back to the supply and demand, so ultimately, if you really think about it, Bitcoin's price is determined by supply and demand, but the supply is fixed. The
Yes.
supply doesn't change. So,
This
and the
is
supply is
basically predictable.
mathematically, yeah, it's exactly the same, and everyone knows what it is. So, I just find it very interesting, and again, I think it's the first true form of money that has been limited in terms of supply. Because some people might say, Sunny, well, gold was limited. There's only so much gold in the world, right? But it's not predictable in the same way, in the sense that I'm sure you heard last year or a couple of years ago, some Indian temple found, you know, tons and
Yes,
tons
yes,
and tons of gold underneath. Okay, so now all of a sudden the supply changes. Oh, someone's asking about Elon Musk. Oh, maybe Elon Musk figures out how to extract gold from a comet that's flying by Earth, and now all of a sudden the amount of gold we have on Earth goes up. Or maybe someone 3D prints gold somehow and figures out how to print. My point is, even gold itself is not truly scarce, whereas Bitcoin, you can't make more than 21 million, right? It's kind of a beautiful thing that way. Anyways, I wanted to kind of set that background because, you know, if people are like, oh, well, you know, just it's not about volatility. It is about volatility. But keep in mind, Bitcoin's been the best performing asset in the last 10 years, right? And so why is that? And we talk about that in this show. And so that's why I wanted to highlight that the supply of Bitcoin is limited, and it's a curve that anybody can look up.
Okay, so Sunny, why I mentioned the tea and coffee example here was because I wanted to know. See, a lot of people know there are enough altcoins in the market that they can look at maybe as some replacement, which it's not going to be truly. But it's always interesting
But
to know
people
from
do,
you
yeah.
because, yeah, you're such a Bitcoin enthusiast. It's always very interesting to know this answer from you. There's Ethereum, okay, which comes as next best as per what people say in the market, but it's not scarce from what I know, is it?
Wow, that's a good point. Oh, wow. So, okay, there you go. There you go. So, okay, your first question was, is there a correlation between the Bitcoin price and the crypto price? I think, I mean, most people would say yes. And the main reason is because people, you know, tend to associate, you know, crypto in their minds the same way they look at stock markets and other things. So they think, oh, well, you know, if this one car company is doing good, then all car companies maybe will do good, right? And so there's a little bit of, I would say, you know, waiting there. Um, so definitely, so there's a correlation, I think, and again, I'm guessing a little bit here, but I feel that if you look at most of the bull runs in the past, Bitcoin usually leads those bull runs. So something happens, the price of Bitcoin takes off, and then shortly after, you'll see Ethereum and, you know, the other ones kind of follow suit, all right? So there is that does happen, but then to the more important point that you just brought up, which is Bitcoin, I mean, are the other ones truly limited, right? And I think when you double click on that point and you try and do some research, it's hard to figure out. You know, so let's talk a little bit about this, right? So you know, our currency, right? Like whether it's Canadian dollars, rupees, US dollar, euro, whatever, you know that all of these currencies are inflationary, correct?
Yes.
Do you know what inflationary kind of means? It just
Yes. So as the number of notes in the circulation increase, the more you have to
yes.
pay for getting a certain thing.
Yes, exactly. So it's so the number of nodes is increasing, the circulation is increasing. So that's what makes it inflationary. Um, Whereas in Bitcoin, it's the opposite. It's deflationary, right?
Yes.
So what that means is that the curve actually starts at zero and it like goes like this and it approaches a line of 21 million by 2140. And so the number of Bitcoins coming into existence every 10 minutes is actually getting reduced every 4 years. And so it's deflationary. So it's the opposite of our current financial system. Ethereum, if I had my best explanation to try and explain it, and this is because I asked Vitalik like 5 years ago, can you explain to me? I think he would tell you that Ethereum it used to be disinflationary. So it's not inflationary, it's not deflationary, it's disinflationary, which I think it just means is that it's not reaching an asymptote of 21 million or any number, and it's also not inflationary where it's kind of just running away. It's this line like that goes like this to infinity. So it's more and more and more and more ether is coming in. I don't believe there's like a hard limit. But that's, again, keep in mind, all these technologies are open source. And so people saw Bitcoin, and in this case, Vitalik, and said, okay, Bitcoin does not match my worldview. I have a different worldview. I don't think that, you know, a deflationary currency is going to meet the needs of the people. So he went out there, modeled Ethereum after Bitcoin, but changed some of the parameters, including this. Now, in recent years, I've been hearing more and more that Ethereum is trying to position themselves as like the sound money alternative. Like now Ethereum is the sound money, not Bitcoin, right? I find that a bit hard to believe because their proposition has always been smart computer, you know, Turing complete, and, you know, it's hard to forget all that. And so, anyways, I digress, but I do think that, yeah, there's definitely a correlation. and secondly, very observant of you to notice that that Ethereum is not supply limited, and these are the little things that people pick up over time. And as you pick up those little things, you'll start to realize why people like me keeps loving Bitcoin, because
Yes.
like those things that make Bitcoin beautiful, I believe a lot of the other cryptocurrencies kind of forget why Bitcoin is so awesome, and they go off on tangents.
So
Hey,
Sachin,
Shambhavi, we've got a bunch of questions. Should we touch
yes,
those,
yes,
or maybe we'll
exactly.
save them? Yeah.
Yeah, I was just gonna address to all the questions that we are getting. First question, I think it's a comment rather, I would say, by Sachin Kumawat. He's saying, Elon's tweet and Dodge boom, what a volatility, sir. So how it
Yeah,
affects Dodge coin?
exactly. So that Elon Musk is obviously, like very influential, very famous. I don't know if he's the richest man on earth anymore, but I know he used to be. And so yeah, so I think, when someone like him, and he's obviously very excited about Dogecoin, right?
Yes.
And I'm not gonna lie, I was never a huge fan of Dogecoin, but I am a big fan of Elon Musk. So even a Bitcoin, you could say, person like me, still he had me double thinking. Like when he started talking about Doge, he started going, hey, this is funny and cute, and it's got everything you need to be a global currency, and we're going to adopt it at Twitter and this and that. It got me thinking about it as well. And so if it can get like hardcore Bitcoin enthusiasts like me to even consider going, hey, wait, maybe there's something here. I mean, he is very successful. I think a lot of people feel similarly, right? So when he tweets about Doge or says, that cute dog is going to be the CEO of Twitter or whatever, people get excited, right? People get excited and they think, oh, Elon Musk is going to, invest in Doge, so I'm going to invest, or Twitter's going to enable Bitcoin payment, so I'm going to, get into, or Doge payments, I'm going to get into Doge. So I think people are just I mean, it's human nature, and so yeah, I do think Elon's tweet does have a big impact on the price.
Yes. So with that being said, Sunny, there's another comment by Urban Shades Makeover Studio on YouTube. Okay, this is, I think, one issue my backend team will help you with, Urban Shades.
Yeah.
I think, yeah, she's had some issues with the password in Bitcoin. So yeah, you can just maybe call on our helpline number and get your issue sorted if the issue's on Unocoin. Okay. Then there's Sachin Kumawat once again saying that can Uno exchange provide sweep feature? And we hold that crypto, these are not listed on the exchange. What is the sweep feature?
Again, Unocoin exchange provides sweep feature, and we hold that crypto. These are not listed in exchange. I don't know if I fully understand the question.
Yes,
I
yes.
think what he means, if I'm not mistaken, is sometimes you have like little amounts of like crypto in your different wallets. It's called dust or whatever. Maybe it's like a little bit in the ether, a little bit in this wallet, a little bit. So it's a lot of exchanges will have a sweep function where you just click a button and it'll take all of that dust, and you say, okay, that equates to 5,000 satoshis, and here we'll just sell all those and give you Bitcoin, right? I don't know if that's what this person. I don't know if that's what Sachin is referring to. But again, Sachin, if you want to hit us up on, I think you follow us on Twitter. I think I started following you back as well. Really appreciate you coming to all these sessions and asking questions, by the way. So yeah, so I can try and get back to you if that didn't answer your question.
Okay. So, Sachin, if you have any further questions around the same thing, maybe but a little bit more clarification, you can comment it again. And I think I'll just convey it to Sunny. So there is one another person, Sohail Khan, that is not his question is not around Bitcoin. He's saying that Picoin cryptocurrency में आगे future है या नहीं. So he's basically asking if there's any future for Picoin cryptocurrency, which I think I'm not very sure if I've heard of.
I don't have a lot of knowledge about Picoin, so maybe
Picoin.
we'll stay away from that one.
So
And then I think, yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
okay, so there's one more from LinkedIn. Here, Paul is asking Charlie Munger, if I'm pronouncing it correctly, calls crypto enthusiasts idiots and cites volatility as one of major factors. What is Charlie missing?
Hmm. Uh, yeah, I think he calls. I mean, what his other famous quote is what? Rat poison. He
Oh, is
calls
it?
Bitcoin rat poison. Yeah.
Oh my God.
See, I mean, you do know who Charlie Munger is?
No, not exactly.
Have you heard of Warren Buffett?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So Warren Buffett, I think he used to be top 5 wealthiest people. He was number 2 for the longest time after Bill Gates, I think. So I mean, so Charlie Munger is Warren Buffett's like right hand man. Like
Oh,
they
okay.
have been investing together since the beginning of time. I mean, I would just look at their thesis around technology. Like Berkshire Hathaway's they don't even from what I know, I mean maybe more recently they've started investing in tech companies, but traditionally they're investing in very like normal businesses like Coca-Cola, I think Gillette, like all like shaving companies. So they're very rooted in, I would say, reality. And from what I know, they are not very like into the internet world. Like I've never heard of them make like early investments in Google or Apple or or any sort of like tech company. I did hear in recent years they've been investing maybe in the Amazons of the world and things like that, but he even called Tesla, I think he said that it would never happen or something. And so they're like what's the word? I don't know, to some extent Luddites. They don't really believe in tech. So I mean, I don't put too much weight into it. Um, I think it's also a very, I mean, for people like them, right? They've made so much money in the traditional financial system that anything that I think even stands a chance of threatening it is probably seen as a threat, right? So think about it. If you've amassed like the second most amount of money in the world, well, what money is it? US dollars. And what competes against US dollars? Bitcoin. So you're probably not going to be a huge fan of it. And then also to understand Bitcoin, you have to spend a lot of time and energy to like have these conversations and learn about the technicalities of it and what is it and what's its goal and aim and what's its reasoning for existing. And so I don't imagine they would care about all those things. And in Bitcoin ultimately, like we said, it's disinflationary. So it's about protecting people from ideally, I mean, from rogue governments, right? Like in Argentina, for example, where Messi is from, you've had inflation that's just like completely run away. I've interviewed people on my YouTube channel from Venezuela, and they've shared their stories about the horror stories of what inflation can do. And those people, right, in the poorest countries of the world have now an option to buy an asset that once again has been the best performing asset in the last 10 years, Charlie Munger. So what does he have to say about that? I don't know.
I hope he gets to watch all of these sessions that you're talking about.
Oh yeah, he follows me on Twitter. He watches everything I do. No, I'm kidding. No, he doesn't even watch it.
I hope he does because, yeah, a lot of people, especially that, I think we're talking about Charlie Munger. There are a lot of people in India itself whom you would just go to and, yeah, talk about, oh, I invested that much amount of money into him. I'm like, what a big fool you are. Because I think that's a lack of knowledge, clear lack of knowledge, nothing else. If you educate yourself, I think Bitcoin is the best opportunity you've got in this time.
Yeah, but I mean, he doesn't really, I guess, need it though, right? He's doing so well. He probably lacks. Anyways, but yeah, I think Charlie Munger is an interesting one, but he's been coming at Bitcoin for a long time. In fact, there's a famous interview with Charlie Munger, Bill Gates, and Warren Buffett, like very, very old video. And Charlie Munger says, the rat poison comment, and then Bill Gates, calls it a technical tour de force.
Yes.
Refers to Bitcoin as a technical tour de force, like famous quote. His view
Right.
has probably shifted a bit, over the years about Bitcoin. But, one of his initial kind of comments or analyses was that, hey, it's, a technical tour de force. So I think, again, he's and Bill Gates is obviously far more technical than Charlie Munger. And so I think people who have kind of the computer science background or technical chops, they tend to see what Bitcoin is trying to do. And they might not agree with the morality or the philosophy or whatever behind it, but it's hard to not appreciate the technical genius of it.
Yes. Yes. So, Paul, thank you so much for your question because that just made the conversation so much more interesting. Moving forward, we have one question from Ratnesh Kumar. He's asking, will layer 0 and layer 1 blockchain tokens be stable in future? In the sense he's talking about Bitcoin and Ethereum.
Will they be stable? So do they mean stable in terms of price?
I
I don't
think, yeah, in
know.
terms of volatility.
I mean, yeah. So layer zero, layer one, layer zero. Yeah. I mean, the short story is, will they be stable? Nobody really knows. You can't, like we said at the beginning, the price of Bitcoin and Ethereum and all assets is determined by supply and demand. So the supply you do know. Yeah, yes, price, and then supply you do know, but the demand you don't, right? So if, for example, sentiment turns, governments really start attacking it, you have, hackings like the FTX thing, you have worse things happening more and more, then yeah, you might see, the Bitcoin price tumble further. But ultimately, I do believe that at least Bitcoin has a very stable future. If you look at, like I said, all the development, if you look at kind of how it's being adopted and what's happening around the world, I do think it has a very stable future. And by the way, stable future, that's another good question. So you can't have an asset that is the best performing asset of all time and not have any volatility, right? So volatility is essentially the price that we pay for that upside. So meaning they say that if you can't stomach the roller coaster ride, you should only put enough money into Bitcoin that you can afford to lose. So that's why I always say, you shouldn't bet the farm on even Bitcoin, even though I talk about it all day, every day. It's exciting and it's amazing. Nobody should put in that much into it. It should just be a little bit, nothing that if you lose it, you're going to lose sleep over it. Because even though we're 13 years in, it's still early, I would say, right? I would still diversify, like we talked about in our last one. Buy some gold, buy some land, do other things as well. Yeah. Okay, so I think that kind of answers that question. And then he's saying, I mean, Ethereum and Bitcoin. So again, I do think Bitcoin will be leading the pack again. I could be wrong, but we'll see.
Okay, I think
Lots of
Ratnesh,
questions. Great.
yeah, I think you got your answer. And again, what I think about that is, I don't know, I'm not sure, I'm not an economist, and of course, I'm very new to this entire space itself. But from what I see, when one factor is fixed, I think the other will come to stability in some time. That is just my perspective. Guys, this is just a perspective. Do your own research.
Yeah, no, actually, no, it's a good point. Actually, that's the point I wanted to make is that, yeah, if you look at the volatility 10 years ago, when, like, let's say Satvik and I first started hearing about it, a Bitcoin price would go from $5 to $10, or like from, let's say, 250 rupees to 500 rupees in a day. So it was a 50% fluctuation in a
Oh my
day.
God.
Today, if it moves 50% in 9 months, people get like, oh my God, Bitcoin's volatile. So keep in mind that volatility is going down over time. And once enough people, like once the whole world learns about Bitcoin, the value of Bitcoin, and people buy Bitcoin, whatever it is, it will reach a saturation point. It'll reach a point where, Bitcoin's price will start to stabilize even more and more and more. But I don't think that'll happen soon. I do think volatility will still remain with us for at least 10 years minimum.
But I think volatility is one factor why I consider it as one of the most superior asset classes, because yeah, that's what is making us money that way.
Yeah. Yeah, and it also speaks to the true kind of free market nature of Bitcoin, right? If, for example, there's a problem with, let's say, the US dollar, and banks are going bankrupt and the government's worried that there's going to be a financial crisis, they just change the supply. They just print
Yes.
all, like in the last 2 years, how much money I know the Canadian government printed more money that's ever been printed in the history of the countries. Like, US is similar, I think. They just printed crazy amounts of money, and all governments have to do to justify printing money is to scare people.
Yes.
The market's gonna crash, everyone's gonna die, we got to print money for our friends. Oh, we got a cold, everyone's gonna die from this cold. It's okay, so everyone locked in the house, we got to print money for our friends. So people get sick of this, right? After a while, they're like, wait, so this like merry-go-round doesn't really work for the people. It works for the people who set the rules. So Bitcoin is like, again, it's there's no ruler, but there are rules. So it's like, it's a beautiful kind of system, and there's no ruler, but there's rules.
Mhm. But I think, yeah, that's for the future to decide what happens with the volatility case, which is, I think, again, going to benefit us as well. There are not just downsides to it. There are always, I think, positive aspects to anything we see, especially in crypto. So, with that, there's another comment by Sachin again. Sachin is, I think, really active. I really appreciate how active he is in all of our AMEs and everything. So this question says क्रिप्टो में फंडामेंटल से भी ज्यादा volatility supply demand matter क्यों करता है? So I think what he means to say is in crypto market itself, why does volatility supply and demand matters more than fundamental? I think he means the other asset classes by this.
Yeah, I don't know if I fully understand it. I mean, so, like I said,
Yeah.
supply and demand applies to every asset class. Like
Yes.
even if you're buying soap or toilet paper or anything, iPhones, supply and demand is what drives the price. You have so many units of a product, and you have so many people that are interested in buying that product. And again, once those two curves meet, you get essentially the price is determined. And the exchanges is where that price is determined. You can, if you sit there and look at an order book exchange, you can actually in real time see what we mean when we say the supply and demand is what determines the price. And you literally have the way I like to think of it is it's kind of like a bazaar. You walk into those like Indian bazaars. There's like guys selling fish. There's people selling fruit. That's what's happening in an exchange, right? But if one guy, let's say, has an extra fish, like way too many, and he's not going to sell all of it, he might reduce his price, right? And so supply and demand again even affects the price of fish. It affects the price of Bitcoin, and I don't think it's fundamentally different. I think what is different about Bitcoin is that once again the number of Bitcoin is hard limited. Even if 1,000 new miners join the network tomorrow, it's not like, oh, there's going to be lots of new Bitcoin coming into existence. The number of Bitcoin is going to be fixed at whatever it is for every 10 minutes. Yeah. So I think that's why people are, I think, but the fixed nature of Bitcoin is one of the main reasons why people is so excited about Bitcoin, because in the history of mankind, you've never been able to have a digital asset that was limited. Like, think about it. That sounds like an oxymoron. How can you have a digital asset like a Word file on my computer or an email is by nature not finite? I can send it to 1 million people and it doesn't, So the fact that Bitcoin figured out or Satoshi figured out how to make a digital good limited in a decentralized and open source way is super magical.
I think totally. So again, Sunny, when questions around Bitcoin and everything comes, there are a lot of
Uh-huh.
people. Like I've been coming across this new thing recently, which I think a lot of my colleagues also helped me understand when I was on at the initial stage of understanding this process of folks. There are a lot of people.
Of
They
what?
might
Sorry, hoax?
folk
Oh,
coins,
folks.
the
Okay, folks.
spin-offs. Yeah,
Forks. Yes, I
yeah,
know about
folks.
forks. Yes. What about them?
Yeah. So I think when I came across this concept, I was like, okay, but why was there a need to maybe copy the same code
Oh,
base and do it again? But a lot of people, maybe they had a lot
great
of
question.
disagreement with how Bitcoin was working and they wanted to do something like with their own perspective alongside what Bitcoin was already, what the original thing was. So that's when it came into existence. That is again an altcoin, but how do they affect the price and volatility of Bitcoin? Do they?
Wow, fantastic! You've been really doing some wonderful research, it seems. I'm very proud of you. Okay, so I think that's a great question. So I think you kind of answered it, right? Which is that why do forks exist, right? So I don't know, was Roger Ver, I think, famously forked Bitcoin into Bitcoin Cash, right?
Different
That was
cash.
his kind of, and then you had people like I think Craig Wright. He's a controversial figure. Started something called BSV, I think. So I guess the main thing is to keep in mind that Bitcoin is open source, which is one of its most like amazing, beautiful things. But that also opens the door for anybody, including you, me, Craig Wright, whoever wants. we can just say, hey, I know better than the Bitcoin community, and I have a community that doesn't believe in Bitcoin as it is, and we want smaller blocks, or we want bigger blocks, or we want something different completely. We like everything Bitcoin up until now, but now we want to take it in a different direction. But that's not easy, because now you need to get miners that mine, and you need to convince users that somehow your Bitcoin Cash is better than the real Bitcoin, right? So it's a pretty interesting phenomena. Your question was, does it affect the price?
The
Again,
volatility.
I don't know anything 100%, right? So everyone should just like take it with a grain of salt. But my assumption is probably yes, right? Because if you have, let's say, Bitcoin in its like original form, and you have, let's say, 1 million people who love Bitcoin, but then there's 5% of the people who like this new vision of Bitcoin. If they obviously leave the normal Bitcoin network, stop buying it and acquiring it and hodling it, and they decide to now, buy this other fork, then the price of that fork will be going up or down dependent on that, right? But with all that said, I think the main point I want to make, and this is one of the reasons, like, because a lot of people ask me, they're like, Sunny, you've been in Bitcoin so long, like, are you just lazy? Do you just not like reading about other coins? Is that why you're anti, crypto? It's not true, right? I actually I try my best to read as much as I can and follow as much of these other projects. But like I said, there's like these fundamental kind of building blocks that seem to be missing in all the other cryptocurrencies as opposed to Bitcoin. Yeah, I don't know. Do you have any thoughts on this one? I don't know if I like properly answered it, but
No, I think what I meant to ask was, of course, it's going to affect the price and everything, but does it also reduce the significance of Bitcoin in some manner?
oh, right. Does it so actually I remember what I was gonna say, network effects. That's what I was gonna talk about. Does it reduce the price? So I think in the short run it would, right? Because let's say now, let's just use Roger Ver as an example. He now has a new coin. He's now taking, 50,000 people with him instead of the million that you had originally to go and buy and sell this other coin, right? So I do think that it does have an effect on the price. But then you could also argue that because of that fork, Bitcoin itself is able to preserve what makes it so amazing. And more people, instead of now bending and trying to make everyone happy, Bitcoiners are like, no, we believe this is the right value proposition, and they keep charging forward. And because maybe they get it right, more and more people even get excited by Bitcoin. And then they go, oh my God, Bitcoin is truly not changeable. And if somebody wants to change it, they're going to create something different, something totally, not like Bitcoin. But the point I wanted to make was network effects, right? So the reason I'm so excited about Bitcoin over other things is because there's something called network effects, which means that I mean, it's in essence like think about it. If I wanted to, let's say, remake Facebook, okay, let's say we got some of our engineers at Unocoin, we built Facebook, right? Who would use? I mean, it's not that hard to build Facebook. It's a pretty simple platform, right? It was built like so long ago. Anybody can build it. But nobody would use it because you go to Facebook because maybe your parents are on there, maybe not because your parents, but your friends are on there. You have like whatever celebrities, and you get to learn about the news. But if I just said, hey, I created something called Sunnybook, you're going to love it. Like, you have to use it. You're going to be like, okay, sir, maybe not. Right. So Bitcoin, once again, has network effects. And because it was first out of the gate, because it was so well thought out, because it has so much momentum, like I keep saying, Elon Musk to El Salvador government to, Fidelity, and all these people are getting in. It's really hard to dethrone that. Like, if you look at most institutions, like large institutions, like let's say Fidelity, they're not starting crypto funds, right? They're starting Bitcoin solutions, right, to enable people. And maybe if you're lucky, they might have some Ethereum in there, right? But Bitcoin is really kind of the signal for, again, I'm talking about like nation states, super wealthy people, high net worth, like family offices, institutions. All these people are looking more and more on Bitcoin. And again, one of the big reasons, like I said, is because of its network effects. And, like I said, I'm talking about Bitcoin 10 years in, maybe you'll start talking about it, other people talk about it, and that kind of creates this buzz.
So I think our audience has gone a bit lazy. So, guys, I'm not seeing any comments in our comment section. Okay,
I
so
see.
I
I
want
see a
you all
couple. I see
to.
Sachin. He's asking more questions, but yeah,
Yes,
but it's
such a
okay. Do we have
question.
more questions from your list, Shambhavi?
Yeah, I have a lot of questions, but I want our audience to also ask their questions because that is what makes our conversation even more interesting.
True.
And
True.
yeah, also very interesting for them as well. I have a lot of questions. I have a bunch of questions. If I start asking them, I think there will be no space for
It'll go
any.
off track. So Ratnesh is asking, what do you say about crypto staking?
Oh, I
I don't
think
know.
there's an
Are
issue
you
with
not seeing?
my thing. I cannot see those new questions.
That's okay. I can actually no, I can't even highlight it. But it's okay. But Ratnesh is asking, what do you say about crypto staking? So again, I think today's conversation is more around volatility. So maybe we won't spend too much time on staking. But in short, I'm not a huge fan of it. I'm a big fan of Bitcoin mining. I mean, everything to do with Bitcoin, I love, obviously. But I mean, just if you study Bitcoin mining and like what's actually happening, it is mind blowing. It's mind blowing, right? So, in the process of Bitcoin mining, what these miners are doing, they're essentially buying these like highly capable supercomputers, like supercomputers. The Bitcoin like network is the most powerful supercomputer on planet Earth by like a huge margin, a huge factor, right? And that core of the Bitcoin mining is essentially what makes sure that Bitcoin transactions are secure and all of that, right? And so I don't know. Again, a lot of people also think, oh, Bitcoin mining is bad for the environment or something like that, right? Again, I don't even buy into that. I think if you use, let's say, green energy sources of like gathering energy, then you can have clean Bitcoin mining as well. So staking, what are my thoughts on it? I personally I can't articulate exactly maybe why I'm not a huge fan of it, but just something sounds wrong about it to me, right? Again, it's great. I like the free market, let everyone do what they do. But when I look at Bitcoin and I go, how ASICs are driving like the core of it, and you think about Moore's law, and you think about, security, you think about just like irreversibility, you think about censorship resistance, you think about open source, all these things. When I think about Bitcoin, I think it's like it's there. But with Ethereum and a lot of these other staking platforms, I get worried again, because what is staking? So in order to stake, you need to have the cryptocurrency itself, right? Number one, there's a lot of question marks around it. I don't know if you've been following the United States, but there were some really big things that's happened in the US in the last couple of weeks around staking, right? Big exchanges got in trouble for staking. The government is now saying, oh, staking is related to is a security. They're saying that the entire Ethereum network might be considered a security because of just how they, their recent move with the staking and everything. So I don't know. I think there's still a lot of question marks around it. Whereas when I look at Bitcoin, I go, oh my God, this protocol, this system has been working flawlessly since the beginning. Ethereum again, right? Even Ethereum was a mining based platform, and then they shifted to staking. So they just moved to staking, and they're still kind of transitioning over. So give it time, and maybe in 10 years I'll be proven wrong, and staking will be like the next best thing. But I've yet to, I don't know, be convinced.
So there's
Since you can't read the questions, I can read some of them. Shambhavi, do you want me to?
yeah, I think you can take the one from Shrikant. Actually, my backend team is sending all of them to me now on a
Okay,
separate
cool.
chat.
Shrikant.
Yeah, Shrikant, there's a question related to our exchange. So I think you'd be the most suited person to answer this question. He's saying last time this question wasn't answered. Okay. Whether Unocoin meets with what sort of standard security requirements? So, what security requirements do we meet, and how is Unocoin secure for our users?
Yeah, I'll kind of just answer high level, but I think this would be a great question to pick up with your call next week with Satvik, right? Because
Yes.
Satvik's our CEO. In many ways, he's also our CTO, right? Like he's our technical kind of leader as well. And so I feel like Satvik can do these types of questions much more justice than me, but I'll kind of talk to some of the things that we do as a company. And again, if you're talking about having a security audit done, that's something that Unocoin is now embarking upon. We're looking into and getting done. But if you're just talking about what do we do for security purposes, since the beginning, I guess one of the key things is we keep our the Bitcoin offline, right? So we use something called cold storage to keep crypto secure for our customers. And what that does is that ensures obviously that that the crypto or the Bitcoin on our platform is unhackable. And at any given point in time, there'll only be a small percentage of our total crypto that we hold for our customers that will be available and accessible online, like on a server. And it'll be like less than, let's say, 1% of all the Bitcoin. And the Bitcoin and the crypto that actually we interact with on the server, we use a company called BitGo. They're like kind of the industry leader. I think we were one of their first customers actually way back in the day. And more recently, we also use a company called Fireblocks. And these types of companies, what they do is they have really, really interesting technology. BitGo specifically has something called multi-signature. And then within Fireblocks, they have something called MPC. And these types of technologies essentially help companies like ours keep our so the only, I mean, when you have funds offline in a kind of a cold storage way, it's literally impossible, like mathematically impossible to hack those funds. So then really the only funds that you have a lot of concern about are the funds on the hot wallet or on the server. And we, like I said, we've been partnered with companies like BitGo and Fireblocks. And the beauty of companies like BitGo is that the way they set up their kind of multi-signature is that even if, let's say, Unocoin for whatever reason got hacked or something really awful happened to us, the bad guys still wouldn't be able to run away with our customer funds. They would essentially need to compromise BitGo's security, our security, and the customer security in order for them to be successful. So those are two things. We've had, a mandatory 2FA on all of our kind of, sign in from the beginning. We were the industry leader, I think, in terms of introducing that. And I know like doing things like KYC and all that don't really speak to the security question, but we also take that stuff very seriously, just because we don't want to be dealing with people that are going to be doing nefarious things. So that's a little bit, and I think the question is more around, are we doing a security audit? So like I said, I think Saptik would be best positioned to take that one up next week.
Okay, so Shrikant, please tune in at 5 itself. I think that would be, what is it? That would be next Tuesday. You can come on Twitter Spaces and attend that session where you can get answers to all the questions that you're willing to get around securities and everything. So yeah, just make sure you tune in on time. Next question is from Sachin, and which is an interesting one because it is around one of our upcoming features. He's asking, sir, can you divide crypto in categories on Unocoin where we easily find DeFi infrastructure, Web3 layer, 1 by 2 large cap, small cap, and more such categories? So I think this is a question around Crypto Basket, which is an upcoming feature. I think Sunny could brief a little about Crypto Basket.
Yeah, I mean, Crypto Basket we launched like quite a while ago, but I think the feature you're talking about, Shambhavi, is making its way into the Crypto Basket tool, from what I know. And so Sachin's short answer is yes, it's coming. That's part of what our team is working on now.
I think so Sunny, so Sachin, please stay tuned. As soon as the feature is live, please take all the benefits that you can from that, because I know Bitcoin is the key, but if you're looking to earn a lot of it in short term, then diversify. Again, DYOR.
Yeah, exactly. The Crypto Basket, the thinking around that was, even though I'm like so adamant about Bitcoin, I'm not gonna lie, part of me has thought, oh my God, even if I put a little bit of money into all these other coins, you don't know, right? One of them might just pop, like Dogecoin was brought up, right? So if somebody has a little bit of crypto and they just want to diversify across, a bunch of crypto assets and do it at one click, do it in a way that's like, let's say market cap weighted or volume weighted, you can do that easily within Unocoin. But again, I would never do like a lot of Bitcoin with that, but it's something you can try out, test out, and and soon we'll be bringing Web3 and DeFi infrastructure to that as well.
Okay, so I think Sachin, you got your answer. Sunny, something else that I was willing to discuss was around the natural calamities and the catastrophes that take place around the world. And people, of course,
Mm.
the price of assets are highly, I think, affected by these calamities. But from what I think, there's a positive perspective when it comes to crypto. I know when I say catastrophe or calamity, people would be like, oh, something negative, some price issue would be there. I'm so sorry about my throat, everyone. But uh, what I'm trying to say here is recently, I think Turkey had some disaster, some natural disaster on its hand, and a lot of people donated in crypto to help them with the disaster relief fund. So
Yeah.
I think when the cash and the country's fiat is not working as good as it's supposed to be, that's where it comes in and it helps the people as well. Now, how does this affect the volatility of Bitcoin around when it comes to such disasters and calamities? Is it like in a positive manner or is it like negative like all the other asset classes?
Well, I mean, a disaster is probably never positive. But I know what you're trying to ask. I think it's a great question. So I think the first point is that um, so let's say there's some giant disaster, right? Like an earthquake or whatever. And actually, one example, I remember when I was first getting into Bitcoin, I was in Bangalore, and there was this huge like flood or hurricane or something that hit New York. And it
Okay.
was so bad that they'd flooded like all the servers, I think. And it was just a big situation, right? And I remember I was like, and they were like out of power for a little bit. I was thinking at the time, I'm like, if I wanted to send my friends in New York, let's say a bit of value, a bit of money to help them, you can't even use, let's say, the financial, the normal network, because it would take forever. And once they get the money, they have to cash it out, this, that. But Bitcoin, because again, it's so resilient and it's open source and it's kind of like a multi-headed hydra, you can't really kill it, and it's always there. It serves as a great tool. So again, I don't want to get too political about all this, like Ukraine, US, Russia stuff, because I think people are very touchy about it. But if you look at Ukraine, when they needed funding, right, early on, what did they use? They used Bitcoin, right? You brought up Turkey, right? So in that kind of disaster, a lot of people were coming together and putting Bitcoin together and sending it to relief efforts in Turkey. And why do people do that? It's because again, you don't need to get a bunch of permission. You don't need to send wire transfers that take a week and blah blah blah. It's just pop 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 pop. It's like an email. Everyone can just send Bitcoin, gather it, give it to the people who need it, cash it out, and then start helping them. Um, Another example I was reading about just yesterday was what happened in India with the COVID relief, right? So I don't know if you heard about what happened, but Vitalik donated
Yes.
$1 billion of Shiba
Shiba
Inu
Inu.
to the gentleman who runs sorry, Matic, right? Is it still called Matic? I think they maybe call it something else. But there's some people in India that run a layer 2 solution on top of Ethereum. They're very, very successful. And yeah, and so there was that as well, right? And so I think it's a very exciting time to be in Bitcoin. Oh, Sachin's got another question. If India banned foreign crypto exchange and wallet, what about our fund? How we get? Should we take that one on?
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know exactly, right? I mean, but this is kind of like a if question, right? So it's hard to say these ones. But if India were to ban foreign crypto exchanges and wallets, what about our funds? How would we get it? I mean, you could use Unocoin, obviously, but I think the question is a bigger one. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, India already bans the transfer of large amounts of money right out of the country. It's called capital controls. So if they now took it a step further and said, hey, nobody in India is allowed to send money to a crypto exchange abroad, yeah, I think it would make it quite difficult for people in India. And we've seen now with what happened in 2018, 2019 when they came after us, is that they do have control of the banking network, and they can, if they wanted to, disable your ability to send money to, let's say, a foreign exchange, they could probably do that. And so, yeah, I think it would mean that people would have a hard time buying and selling Bitcoin. This is why, obviously Unocoin started, because we noticed that it's quite difficult to get money abroad, right? Because of capital controls, it takes a long time. There's all these like kind of, variables that come into play. And that's why we started Unocoin, so that people in India would have, a chance to buy and sell Bitcoin.
Okay. Another thing, I think Binance and all of that, I know like they're all originating from different countries, but I feel like it's always like, like also our Prime Minister says, made in India thing. You should always trust on the things or on the exchanges. It's just an opinion again. You should always trust on the things that you can see, like from your own eyes, and those are, I think, accessible to you. I think I recently heard a case where somebody involved some third person exchange that just promised them they'll double their coin or so, and they got into a big time scam. And it did not really end well for the person, because I think his entire life saving was gone in that scam. So I feel like you should always trust on exchanges, on persons, on people, whomsoever you're engaging with in terms of your monetary things. Make sure that you can just reach out to them whenever you feel, whenever there's a doubtful situation like that. Make sure the customer support and everything is always, intact, and you can just reach out to them whenever. That could be for anything. That could be even for the banks. Why would you keep your money with Swiss Bank if you, like, if you have to withdraw money every day in India? So I
Yeah,
think
exactly. Yeah, so customer support is a big one. I think, just generally speaking, like legal recourse. Let's just say something bad happened and you wanted to, go after some international exchange. Like, how would you even go after them, like, or litigate? Like, I mean, there's a lot of things that I think come
yes,
into a
exactly.
language. Like, I think a lot of people appreciate that Unocoin, we speak a lot of different languages in India. And so, yeah, I don't know, but there are reasons why people, love to go to foreign exchanges too, right? Like, sometimes you can get better pricing, you can get more options. And so I definitely hear Sachin's comment, but I don't know the answer in terms of, like, I assume if they were to ban it, then you wouldn't be able to, right? I'm sure people will figure out ways to get around it. You can send money, I guess, to your family friend in XYZ country and get them to buy it for you. I mean, there's always workarounds, but I think, I think it would make it considerably more, challenging. And even what I just said, I don't even think that's allowed.
Even I feel like our governments are very much concerned about the people, so I don't think they would take any such step where money in large amounts is going to get stuck with some foreign exchange or so, until and unless, of course, it's going to be some big scammer company from outside that doesn't even exist, maybe, or maybe exists in some random country you don't know about. So
But
I
Shamli,
think
to your earlier point, though, I think that's a good one, which is like, hey, like everyone out there, be very, very careful. If anybody is promising to double your Bitcoin or give you free something, anything, yeah, you should be very wary and think twice about it, because that's how a lot of people get scammed.
exactly, clicking on multiple links and just getting the calls where you might just receive an offer that somebody is going to. First of all, no one can double your bitcoins, because yeah, that's the amount of bitcoin you've purchased. How can it be doubled in the first place? And then again, around any other cryptocurrencies as well, I think the first step with your money is caution, be it with fiat or be it with crypto. So, moving forward, Sunny, like we are talking about all these scams and everything, just to maybe elongate this conversation a little bit further, how do these scams and all of these affect the price of Bitcoin, if there has to be an effect on the price?
Like, what kind of scams? Because there's just so many of them. I don't know which one you're talking about.
Like
Like,
some big
yeah,
time scam, yeah, that
like
might be a rug pull for big
like
companies.
FTX. Are we talking like OneCoin? Are we talking like coin scams, exchange scams? I mean, there's so many of them here.
Anything that could be, maybe, yeah, exchange hack,
Yeah,
exchange, yeah,
yeah.
not working out.
Yeah, I would say definitely has a downward pressure on the price, but creates a buying opportunity for those people looking for to get in cheaper. But no, I think definitely, like, negative, negative things that happen in the space. I don't know if you've heard of OneCoin. Actually, I heard Ruja was murdered recently. But anyways, there was this like one called OneCoin, which was like a big, big scam, and They were just stealing, like blatantly stealing people's money. But a lot of people were really interested in it. They loved it. And so I would be very, very careful. Yeah. This space, because it's like, we say it's like the free market and it's like super innovative and new, it also attracts a lot of like of the bad guys, because they know that, this space isn't regulated fully yet. It's new and it's like subversive to some extent. And so I think people need to be they have to exercise a lot of caution. It's like if you're walking into the jungle, you wouldn't just like take your backpack and like you probably, be a bit careful. Like, so I think Bitcoin,
Yeah.
crypto, it's not for the faint of heart. I don't think it's for everyone. And if you are very new and you're just learning about this technology, we always tell people like, maximize your learning. And if anything, put a tiny, like a lot of people don't know, but you can buy 500 rupees worth of Bitcoin, right? Or whatever, some small amount, and then just play with it and see how it works and learn about it. And as you start to learn more, if you get more comfortable and you think it's worth it, then put more in. But don't don't bet the farm on it. That's for sure.
So I think with that being said, Sunny, it's time to end our session for today. We are already past our 1 hour time limit. So thank you everyone for joining in. You guys had amazing questions today and it was really interesting. Thank you so much, Sunny, for joining in. You answered all of them in an amazing manner, I would say. So it was a very insightful and a great session.
Great job, Shamnavi. Okay, take care. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.